I do.
So, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to be discussing my favorite subjects. Like anytime I hear this word, I'm like, man, I'm there. I want to listen. And so, especially when I met Eve, I'm like, well, I desperately want to do a class on Navamsa and insights into Navamsa. So today, Eve is going to show us what is exactly Navamsa, how you can use it, what is it all about, what does it represent besides marriage, what else it can show. So Eve, take us into the wormhole of Navamsa.
Thank you, Kapil. I'm so happy to be here again. And before I get started, of course, I always like
Wait. You actually, she was very brave this past week, and she actually made her first video on YouTube.
Oh my God.
Eve Mendoza YouTube channel. You can just type Eve Mendoza, you'll come up. You go out there and just comment and annoy her. There you go.
And I openly ask everyone to be very patient with me and tolerant, because I put a lot of emphasis on my personal readings and sitting with people intimately. So what happens is when I get so many emails, it becomes like quantity over quality, like you just produce. And so I've stopped replying for a while. So anyone who's writing to me, just please practice patience, because I have to devote my time to my practice and my sadhana and and it has to be I want the quality to be good.
Yeah.
So it might take a minute to get all the videos out too, but I'm working on it.
Okay. So are you taking you're taking readings, and or you're like slowing on that also, right?
I do. I have a lot of repeat clients from over the years, from when I've just,
and especially now since you came, I mean, you must have been bombarded. I remember like you were just like crazy emails are coming through. So
went, my inbox more than doubled. and I'm like, I'm really trying, because my teacher would never wanted me to be too big to reply.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he also wouldn't have wanted me to not give quality response.
So it's not about ego or too big to reply. It's just you spread yourself thin. Like
exactly.
if I saw it reply to all my emails, which I receive at least 3,000 emails a day. I mean, I would. What am I gonna do then? I mean, I will have no time at all to myself and to my work. So it's not about.
It's so true, and I'm such a watery person. I'm not the kind of person who can just produce. I have to. There has to be a flow. It has to be right time. Yeah, I'm not on American time. Actually, I'm one of those people that kind of like go with the time of nature. It's really hard.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'd like to offer just a quick mantra, and then I'll share my screen, or I'll go ahead and share my screen actually, get everything set up. Okay, let me minimize that. Okay, can you see okay?
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna go to this first thing and.
Beautiful.
Okay, so before we get started, I'll just offer a quick prayer. So, Om Ganganapataye Namaha, Om Aim Saraswati Namaha, Om Vakdevye Chvidmahe Vrinchi Patni Chidhimahi Tano Vahani Prachodayat. Okay, and Kapil, I really, I wanted to take a minute too, because we are talking about Navamsa. I wanted to take a minute to bow to the knowledge within you. Because, the Navamsa is a chart of the path. It's a chart of the soul's journey. And I don't want to take for granted here the path that you're offering or introducing to people on a collective scale. So I think it's appropriate that I honor that quality in you and honor Venus in you. Because
wait, I need to have my crown and my staff.
I think we need to give you an award.
Man, my crown. This is my king's chair. All right, go ahead now.
Right, sit back.
I shall knight you today. Oh, look, here's my crown.
I know it's embarrassing, but I really, it's important for me to do that, because it is honoring the Navamsa. And the Navamsa, the Navamsa reflects the path. And I'm going to explain that as we go further into this journey. So, So you can see, Navamsa, right? So the ninth portion of the collection of degrees, which Rashi literally just means like a collection or group, or like a big pile of degrees, or karma, you could even say, big pile of karma. So it's the ninth portion of that pile. And Varga, which we commonly define as division, it technically can be translated as a group of similar things. So it is a division, but it's a division of many things that are similar. So when you understand that Navamsa means it's the ninth portion of the collection or heap of karma, you could say, in a category, a specific category. Now, what kind of category? What are we actually looking at when we look at the Navamsa? And I have a picture of Lord Vishnu reclining here, and I like this picture because you have the Trimurti principle activated all together in this picture. You have Lord Shiva in the form of Sheshnag. Okay, and sometimes Lord Shiva is in the form of the Sudarshana chakra. So you'll hear references to Rudra taking both forms. You have Brahma emerging from the navel, because Brahma is the great dream, the matrix, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you have Vishnu, the preserving, sustaining force, reclining with these two forces. And you see Lakshmi holding his feet. Now, Pada, right? The 4 feet. Now, Padas become important for the Navamsa. They actually define the Navamsa, the Padas of the Nakshatras, right? And you have 4. And I've always kind of looked at this as the 2 feet of Vishnu and the 2 feet of Lakshmi. You know, the Venus is the most important planet, and we're going to talk about that, but there's something about the soul's path in the dream that the Navamsa reflects. So I really feel it's the chart of fortune and fate, and so I have the hand, you know, the symbol of reading fate. And it's the stability or foundation of the path of the soul. So I find it to be one of the most important charts. You can even decipher the whole Rashi chart from the degrees of the Navamsa. They're that, you know, you can do that with any divisional chart technically, but the Navamsa, you can tell which nakshatra, you can tell everything. So now Venus, I really want to establish a proper foundation of understanding with Venus here. Because why is Venus the most important graha in the Navamsa? The Atma Karaka is 2, right? Because we get the Karakamsha, and we're going to be covering that. I'm actually going to show everyone a chart with a Navamsa yoga, because there's some yogas that are formed off of grahas in the Navamsa, or rulership in the Navamsa, and they're important. And then also Atma Karaka forms the Karakamsha, which comes from the Navamsa as well, and that's a very important point or marker on the path. As a matter of fact, it's so important that they say the 5th house from the Karakamsha should be treated like the Lagnesh, or the Lord of the Lagna. So the 5th house from the Karakamsha is actually very important. Now, what does that tell you about the Navamsa? The 5th house is Purva Punya Bhava, right?
Now you're talking about the Karakamsha in the birth chart, or Karakamsha in the Navamsa itself?
Well, you determine the Karakamsha from the Navamsa, right?
Right.
Because where the Atma Karaka goes in the Navamsa, that Rashi, that sign is the Karakamsha.
So you put that back into your birth chart. And
put it back into your Rashi chart,
yeah.
Find the 5th house from it, and that is like a Lord of the First.
Okay.
That is as strong as the Lord of the First. And any planets aspecting that house or falling in that house become really important. Okay, so Venus, if you look at the nakshatras that Venus activates, they all deal with life and death. They deal with the resurrection of the dead, the process of reincarnation, procreation, the re-energizing of the life force. All of those nakshatras deal with human life. And you can see how Venus is the planet of the path. Look at where Venus is exalted. Venus is exalted in 4th pada Revati Nakshatra, which is a moksha nakshatra, and it's exalted in the moksha pada, which is Vargotam as well.
Mhm.
Now, Revati, the god, is Pushan, the god of the road, the god of the path, the god that leads us home, the shepherd, right? So the god of liberation is, Venus thrives in liberation. That's why they say Chit Samadhi Krite, which means the producer of samadhi within the consciousness or within the awareness. So that is a name of Venus. So Venus gives samadhi, the final absorption. Venus gives all the forms of absorption between that too. All the different, like the orgasm or the sexual experience, that also is a kind of minor bliss, right? Compared to samadhi, which is the great bliss, or bhakti, something. So Venus shines in a liberated state because Venus is associated with the goal, with the path, with making it. Think about Venus being the karaka for vehicles, you know? So you can see this other shade of Venus representing our soul's journey through life. So that's why the Atma Karaka, the soul, indicator of the soul, in the Navamsa shows the path. And that's why Venus is most important. You think of Lakshmi Yoga. Lakshmi Yoga is formed off of the 9th house.
Yeah.
You know? So this is something that we need to be thinking about when we look at the Navamsa. It's definitely not only marriage. Marriage is a part of this. Marriage is a big part because this shows you who's going to make your path more or less fortunate. More or less easy, you know, who's going to be the soul's reflection in the path. But really the Navamsa is a very personal chart. Now, Venus is debilitated in the middle of the path. Look at the nakshatras, 13 nakshatras this way, 13 nakshatras this way. And you have Chitra nakshatra, which is the most tamasic nakshatra. In Virgo, which is in the maintenance cycle, right? The Vishnu set of nakshatras, that tamasic is set this in the middle, or the rashis that are in the middle there, from Leo to Scorpio. So right in the middle, Venus finds herself bound in the middle of the path, and she's having to define herself. She doesn't want to. She wants the infinite. And Dr. Arjun Paiji and I are going to do like an extensive video on Venus. He was
telling me, yeah.
It's extensive. He has some incredible info. So I don't want to talk about too much with that, but just to give you a taste of who Venus is by where Venus is debilitated and exalted. Venus in Chitra does great in the material world. We should never tell someone because they have a debilitated Venus that they're not going to have talents, or they're not going to have beauty, or they're not going to have this or that, or not going to have a good partner. You know, I'm sure that you have seen cases that defy that. It's not about that. It's about something else. Venus is not going to be himself or herself in that position, because Venus is most himself, Shukracharya, right? The guru, when he's liberated, that's where he does the best. The two gurus are liberated in water signs, which have a moksha agenda.
Wow. Yeah.
You know, so that's where Venus is going to do best. So I just wanted to show the cycle of life and the cycle of reincarnation, you know, because this is why Venus, I really feel Venus in many ways is some people even say Venus becomes the Atma Karaka in the Navamsa. So it's like a secondary Atma Karaka wherever Venus is in the Navamsa. So that's how important Venus is in the Navamsa. So, and you just see the cycle of life and death. And also what we're going to get into here is the Ganas, right? So that's another unique thing to the Navamsa, that if you understand how to use it, because see, it is used a lot for pairing, like pairing people in the Kuta, right? The whole marriage thing.
Yeah.
But really, I think when you look at it through the soul's path, you can understand these groups of nakshatras by their activities, by their focus. So you notice all the Deva nakshatras are all celestial in some way. They're all light. They're all, you look at this, it's like the celestial physicians, the Amrita, or the nectar of immortality, Aditi, who is about replenishment and revival, and all the fractals that repeat themselves in nature. So this primal creative force that's going out into nature. Pushya, which is Brihaspati, the speaker of sacred sound. Hasta, which is Savitor, the golden one. Gayatri mantra comes from that. So you can see Vayu, Anuradha, all these nakshatras, like Revati is even in with the Devgan nakshatras.
Yeah.
So you can look at these and look at their quality, like the Manusya, or Nara, or Nri, as sometimes they're called. You can see a lot of them deal with procreation or rebirth, right? And struggling between like Purva Bhadrapada is struggling between what's good for the gods and what's good for the humans. So this is a very human struggle. It's like the devil on the shoulder and the angel on the shoulder in movies. So you can see the Manusya nakshatras have a very human agenda in some way. They can be enlightened, but they still may deal with this cycle. So, and you can see Purva Ashara in old Muhurtas. Now, this is something I've been looking for the source for a long time. I read so many books back in the day that I can't always remember what the sources came from. But Purva Ashara, when it shows up in a Muhurta, it's said it can cause war or separation or the destruction of contracts. And if you think about the Mayans, they followed Venus. Now, this is a Venus-activated nakshatra in the Vimshotri Dasha. So the Mayans followed Venus for war. And I just always thought that was kind of an interesting thing. And that's a very human thing, to be caught between, like the Devas and the Rakshasas, that human nature to be caught between the two forces. And you can see a lot of that. So, and then the Rakshasa, oddly enough, because this word can mean to defend. Okay, it's rough. It is rough, but it doesn't mean the person's going to be demonic. Look at the nakshatras: Magha, the king; Jyeshta, the king. And I loved what Vedic Astrology said about Indrani and Vishaka. I think there's something applicable there. I think there's something profound that needs to be looked into more with that nakshatra. But the royal court with the Rakshasa nakshatras is emphasized. So you can immediately see these themes, and that will help you read the Navamsa and the agenda of the person's soul, the path of their soul this life, in a different way. Like prominent Magha could have you dealing with national security. Prominent Magha, Jyeshta, Shatabhishaka, these nakshatras could have you dealing with national security. Now, so could the human nakshatras, right? You could combine those two, because those deal more with the human, human condition, which is hard. The human condition is blissful sometimes and really horrible other times. But these, you can see, I just wanted to reintroduce people to these categories, because they shouldn't only be looked at as just flat, like, oh, don't pair this nakshatra with that. Understand why the soul's agenda is the consciousness envelope. Let's see, the karma enveloping the jiva, the individual life force, is trying to work itself out through that in the dream of Brahma, right?
Yeah.
So it's important to understand what cycle you're honoring, where you can be of most service, where your life path is going to allow you to go more. If it's Rakshasa, then you need to protect. You need to use that raw force that you have in some way to either defend, or whatever that may be. So you'll see a lot of people who become political servants of politicians, or politicians themselves, or, Manusya. You'll see a lot of entertainers. You'll see a lot of, so you can just kind of look and figure out where these all fall, and you'll get a deeper understanding of it. Now, this is kind of a fun little thing that I've introduced in the conjunction video that we did together.
Yeah.
Because this is a really fun way to look at the Navamsa, because it's bringing divinity back into this illusory dream. Okay, everything is divine, even the mundane. Everything, even the most mundane action of getting coffee in the morning, it's the dream of Brahma.
Thank you, Brahma, for this room.
Yeah, exactly. So all these experiences that we get to have of pleasure and suffering, of all these diverse things that the consciousness gets to eat, so to speak, and experience, we should be grateful for. Even the suffering is all part of this experience, this journey. And you can see the Trimurti principle operating in all of life. And you'll see that the principle of 9, and I believe Aditya Togiji was explaining this in the Pai Padati. He was explaining the sacredness of the number 9, and you'll see it repeating a lot with nakshatras, and you'll see it repeating a lot with the Navamsa, because of course it's the 9th division. So, but for Vimshottari Dasha, because that's a really important dasha for us. They say the span of life in the Kali Yuga is 120 years. So something happened that was reduced that by almost half.
Yeah, more than half.
Some people say we're ascending out of the Kali Yuga, and the Dark Ages was the darkest point. It just depends on the philosophy.
I mean, what they were saying, like Drup Yug, we're in a transition towards Drup Yug, because even if you look at the Mayan calendar and what Krishna said,
yes,
1,000 years ago, the dates are literally like 3 months apart, of 2012 and 2013, like March.
Like we started ascending.
And since then, you have seen this huge revelation of gurus coming out, spirituality, yoga, Jyotish, all of these things are like just flourishing. Alternative healing, Ayurveda, like so much of this now, it's like finally, it's like now it's, you can see that gray matter, like gray side going from one color to the other. It's like that transition gray that's where we are now.
Absolutely. I agree. I think, yeah, exactly. It's the going upward on the cycle now. What's interesting about that too is lifespan should get longer as we ascend. And you can tell from the Dark Ages, where people were considered old at 30. We've already started increasing our age again, but because of Vimshottari Dasha is divided due to the Kali Yuga like that, you can look at the groups of nakshatras that are given to the Brahma Trimurti principle. You can divide them very easily and locate them in the Navamsa. The Vishnu are the preserving, which keep life going. So you'll see the Venus nakshatras, once again, that reincarnation process, it keeps life going. And Mahesh, the ones that are about closing the eyes to the dream and waking up to the reality. And it's or Shiva, is more commonly used if you're not, familiar with that. But you'll see, interestingly enough, that Ketu is involved in Brahma, and Rahu, who we verify, is involved in waking up from the dream. Rahu's
That's so funny. It should be the opposite, right? That's what
I don't think so. I don't think we're understanding something right, because these Trimurti principles were given to the nakshatras for a reason like this. So when you look at those nakshatras, Ketu has something to perpetuating the dream, the pitris, right? The passing on of the genetic code, which happens through Shukra, through Venus.
Yeah.
So Venus is once again the transmitter. Venus is always the journey. So the code itself is Ketu, and the fluid which transmits is Venus. So they work together to preserve and create. So you can see how this force kind of operates. But Rahu is the future. Think about the Rahu nakshatras and just the ones activated by Vimshottari Dasha. You get Ardra, which is going to shake you out of your dream. It's like sometimes you need to see a nightmare to wake up from the dream. Yeah. And that can be some things that happen through these Rahu nakshatras. Swati nakshatra also can be kind of hard. Can give you some real trials before you get strong and rise in it. So, but these nakshatras have the Trimurti principle of Mahesh. And this is just an easy way. If anything, it's just an easy way to categorize them. So you know immediately that if any planet falls from Aries to Cancer, it's got to be a Brahma Trimurti principle nakshatra. If any planet falls from Leo to Scorpio, it's got to be a Vishnu Trimurti nakshatra in the main chart. And from Sagittarius to Pisces, it's got to be Vishnu Trimurti in the Navamsa. or in the main chart. So the Navamsa is also divided into those principles of Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, and all life has it.
Yeah.
Eat, we digest, and we get rid of it. We were born, we live, we die. Everything recycles itself. Everything has a cycle. And this is particularly important in the Navamsa because it's about the path. So you really want to understand what the person's consciousness is doing. Are they're creating more of the dream?
Mm-hmm.
Are they preserving the dream of sanskars that were already imprinted on the mind or already imprinted on the jiva? Are they trying to wipe them out? Okay, are they trying to wipe out those sanskars? So you can see how this starts working the more you pay attention to it. So when grahas, which are said to be the conscious part of Vishnu, the eyes open of Vishnu, looking at the preserved creation, which is just a dream, the eyes open, Vishnu's preserving the dream. When they're placed in the nakshatra, which gives any graha the power to grow, you know, that the shakti related to the nakshatra, when they're placed in with the same Trimurti activity in the same nakshatra pada number. So if you get a Ketu and a moon nakshatra and their second pada in the Navamsa, they're going to fall in the same Rashi. So they're going to influence the same unconscious field of action. The unconscious mind, you could say, if you want to get psychological. I'm just not a psychological person, but you could call it that. You could call it also the body. Think about how we digest food. We don't even think about it. The body just does it. It just is a very unconscious thing. So the Rashis, when they say they're unconscious, they're very physical in some way. Like we breathe. We don't have to pump in air in and out of our lungs thinking about it. So these planets could have an effect. So why do you think they say in the Navamsa they determine whether a person will have a fiery constitution or a watery constitution or an airy or an earthy constitution? It's because these affect the rashis which give the constitution of the body. So if you have a lot of fire, you have a lot of pitta, right? You're going to have a lot of that heat. And that can show in the Navamsa, especially if you get those planets conjunct in first pada, right? All these, like you get Mars and Sun and they're both conjunct in the first pada of a Jupiter nakshatra. That's gonna be really fiery, and you'll even see lack of fertility and things like that come in when there's that much fire. So this is some way that you can start seeing that the path that the body is going to experience, the path that the mind is going to experience, and the path that the soul is seeking to throw off of itself, meaning all the samskaric burden that the soul is trying to dissolve and get free of, or whatever experience the Atma is trying to break free of. So I wanted to use an example of a chart which was kind of easy, and I looked through a few charts. So Sri Aurobindo, you can really see the importance of the Karakamsha, and you can see the importance of the Navamsa yogas. There's quite a few of them, and I'm going to start covering those so people can have a better understanding, because yoga is just a term. All planetary combinations produce something.
Yeah.
Right? So, but yogas, they're easy. Like when you start studying them, you actually form more intimate relationships with the planet, because then you start going, oh, well, when Jupiter, Venus, and Mercury come together, we're either going to have Brahm Yoga, we're going to have Saraswati Yoga, we're going to have one of these yogas of intelligence, skill, and talent, or refinement of speech and those things. And then you get a deeper understanding of why those three forces coming together in those angles would produce that. Okay, so he's got a really beautiful Bharati Yoga, and that is a name of Saraswati. And he also has Saraswati Yoga in his chart. And if anyone knows about him, he published numerous books. He translated from the original Sanskrit, and he was a very interesting person. I liked his chart because he's a little spicy. He was known, and I can't remember who told me this. Someone told me recently, because I was discussing him. He was considered one of the most dangerous men in India at one time. He was a terrorist. He was
Wow.
trying to get the British out of India. He was associated with a bomb case in court and put in prison. I mean, he was considered very dangerous. He's very intelligent. That Bharati Yoga, Saraswati Yoga, I think he even has a really beautiful Lakshmi Yoga, so it helped those things come to fruition, you know?
Yeah.
So he was like this really intelligent person, and he applied that in a, you know, in an activist type way, and he was considered very dangerous. And then he had a spiritual awakening which led him to go into seclusion, and this was later in his life. So let's just take a glance here, and you automatically see the Ashlesha Nakshatra and the Jupiter right on the Lagna,
Yeah.
and being considered the most dangerous man in India. And he's got this beautiful Neech Bangraj Yoga, right, in the first house, and he's in Pushya. Now, I love Mars in Pushya. Most people would say, oh, it's debilitated. Oh, don't think like that so quickly. Okay, so if this Mars is in Jupiter's exact degree of exaltation, so it's in the fire pada of Pushya, so it's giving a lot of gyan, it's giving a lot of knowledge here. And one thing I've always heard is that malefics in Pushya Nakshatra will make a person a jnani, a seeker of knowledge, even if they do it harshly. And Sri Aurobindo, he definitely did it harshly. He was an activist. He was, you know, he was really about getting the British out. He was really about preserving the Sanskrit culture and preserving the Indian way of life, and getting India free of the British. So he, you know, Jupiter's exalted in that Dharma pada of Pushya. And so when any planet goes there, it's going to be really strong. And the Navamsa helps us see that. You know, the Navamsa shows that his path, and look, it's in the 8th house.
Yeah.
It's in the 8th house of his Navamsa. So we see here just little basics before we get to the Bharati Yoga. We see, you know, I've already talked about some of that, but if you look across here, you're going to see that Sun is strong. I mean, he's just got so many strong elements here. We're going to look at his Karakamsha. Do you see anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, I do. I have two things. Number one, when you were talking about this Bharati Yoga of the 2nd, 5th, and 11th house, were you talking about from Navamsa chart or the birth chart?
It's the Rashi Lord of the 2nd, 5th, or 11th in the Navamsa. So like, okay, so for him, it would need to be the Sun.
Yeah.
Mars, which Mars is the one that's creating it for him.
Okay.
And it's and it needs to be with the 9th Lord. And it's a Neech Bangraj Yoga, so it's very strong. You see that? So
but that's not the Navamsa, though. That's the birth chart.
Right. Mars in the Navamsa.
Okay. He's connected to the okay, hold on.
You see it? Yeah. I have
the Rashis of the birth chart should be in the Navamsa sign, right?
Well, okay, look. So the Lord of the 2nd, 5th, and 11th. So you get the 2nd, 5th, 11th, 2nd, 5th, 11th here.
Yeah.
Mars is the Lord of the 11th.
Yeah.
Mars is the Lord of the 5th. So he's got a strong Bharati Yoga because this
Mars. Okay, I get it.
This Mars is with the Lord of the, so the Lord of the 11th in the Navamsa is with the Lord of the 9th in an angle. Yeah, in
the birth chart is kind of like that Muni Yoga also that exists, where ascendant of the Navamsa and the ascendant of the birth chart together.
Well, Muni Yoga happens when, one Muni Yoga that's very strong happens when Venus is completely thrashed.
Yeah.
So once again, Venus deals with the journey. Yeah. So when Venus is completely thrashed, the person will have no desire to create the journey.
Yeah.
Create any more journey. So that can actually be a really spiritual alignment. It just depends on the person's predisposition. But
if you look at Kapiel Raaj, he has it.
Oh, that wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
It can make the person have to fight, or it can make them a little rough around the edges or something like that. But it really, because Venus is so gentle, so Venus gets a lot of that rough energy around, it can make the person more prone to debate and things like that. But they'll be not interested in furthering the reincarnation process.
And also one thing, I don't know if you noticed it, but what I always have noticed is that Jupiter and Mars, are the two planets that I find that have two exaltation signs.
Interesting.
Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, Mars is exalted in Capricorn, but Jupiter and Mars always seem to feel exalted in Leo.
They do really well in Leo. That's because, okay, you see the really close relationship of Jupiter and Mars, first of all, like the Guru Mangal Yoga.
Yeah.
Jupiter is literally exalted in the Leo Pada, the Dharma Pada, right? When you're looking at Mars too, you have a lot of times association with fire. So anytime you get these in Leo, you're going to, in that dharmic purpose.
No, because it's like if you use the logic of the Rashi, imagine a soldier Mars being treated like royalty, living in the kingdom, having all the nice things. And a priest, the astrologer, the priest, the guru, being invited into the royal court. Hey, what do you want? We'll give it to you. So this is why I always felt Jupiter Mars being really good with friends with the king's son. In the regal sign of Leo, their regalness comes out.
Beautiful. I agree. I think it's a great combination. It's a great combination. I also feel it's very true about that alignment. They classically say it can make a strategist.
Yeah.
Or, you know, like what do you call the Senapati? What is that word? Like the head general? Like it's like the general, but the one in head, he's the lord of all of them. Like he's, you know,
he's like the National Security Council.
Maybe. Yes, someone that would be really good at that, right? Because that defense and that protection of dharma and the right path and all of those things. And it's interesting that Jupiter does so well there. And this is why it makes this so strong for his chart. It's such a defining factor of his whole life's path. And because of that Navamsa yoga, it just locks it in. And that Bharati yoga, he literally fulfilled the purpose of Bharati yoga and Saraswati yoga. And I always say that Ashlesha Nakshatra and Pusha Nakshatra, for some reason, make both Saraswati yoga and Bharati yoga very strong. And I think it's because both of them deal with mantra siddhi. People don't associate Ashlesha with that a lot, but it really is connected. It is connected. There's a Rig Vedic, there's a story about Arbuda, I think his name was, Rishi Arbuda, was a Naga. And he would teach, he taught mantras to the priests, but he would go retreat. It's a connected story to Ashlesha Nakshatra, Sarpa. So he would teach these certain mantras. There were these special mantras. And so whenever you get Saraswati yoga or Bharati yoga happening with Ashlesha or Pusha, the two signs of mantra siddhi, you get a person that's very capable of poetry, of translation, of mesmerizing with words, that hypnotic force with words, like really good writers, those kinds of things. So this just strengthened, it's a good example of it getting strengthened in him. Now I wanted to
ask you something about the previous nakshatra. How would you define then his Jupiter's position in Navamsa?
Yeah, I like that. I really like that because it's right on the lagna and it's debilitated, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think we need to start questioning debilitation, why something is debilitated in the first place.
Yeah.
And you've got to remember there was part of Sri Aurobindo's path that was not so moral. There was parts, Jupiter being the defining factor of the moral code, there were parts of his path that were putting his life in danger, which Jupiter is Jiva Karaka, so the protection of the life force, putting his life in danger, being reckless with his life, and being reckless with the lives of others. So this is all that means. No one should look at that Jupiter and say, it's going to ruin his life. He can't be a teacher. You would be making so many mistakes. Do you know how many astrologers and really wise people I know with debilitated Jupiters or debilitated this or debilitated that? Once again, that debilitated Mars in Pusha Nakshatra, it really will make a person who seeks truth. Malefics in Pusha Nakshatra. will do that. I've seen it every time, especially that first pada and sometimes the third pada. The first 3 padas are really strong for that. So I think we need to understand more about the padas, and I think we need to look at these things for like the karakas of these planets. So Jupiter's Jiva Karaka, and it's also the Karaka of children. He didn't have children.
Yeah.
Wasn't part of his life path.
What about the moral thing that you were talking about? What happened?
Well, he was going to blow people up.
Oh, okay. Hey,
he was.
that's pretty immoral. Okay.
Ashlesha Nakshatra, right?
Yeah.
To utterly destroy the enemy. He was getting ready to go down that path. And I think, honestly, his soul's evolution, which I really feel shows from Navamsa yogas. He has other beautiful things, but let's not lose people here.
Okay.
But I really think if you really look at his chart, you'll see the 2nd house, the 5th house, and the 11th house are very key features of many yogas. There is a reason those houses become important, the 9th house, anytime you get the 1st, 4th, 7th, 10th, but everyone knows that. But the 2nd, 5th, and 11th, there's something very special. So you also see people with large emphasis on those houses. There's a special life path of some sort. There's gain. There's gain from their life path. There's something happening that is... they're really receiving the light, the Jyoti of the grahas that are placed in those places. So it can also restrict, like you get Ketu in the 5th, and he's really going to receive that. It's from the previous life karma. It's a strong imprint. And yeah, he didn't choose to have karma. Now the other thing, do you notice the position of his Rahu and Ketu? Mm-hmm. And look at his Karakamsha. So I want to really emphasize that because the Navamsa is so important this way.
I was going to ask you, because what's his Atma Karka, since Jupiter,
Mercury.
Saturn and Mercury both have the exact same degrees? Yeah,
well, Mercury is...
by seconds, it might be more.
Yeah, I think Mercury is higher, if I remember
Okay, right. So Ketu is his Karakamsha Lagna.
Yeah, Mercury was higher by declination. Yeah, it was higher. So Mercury's Karakamsha. I should have showed that, actually. I'm sorry about that.
No, and then if you look at 5th Lord, ruled by Jupiter, shows learning of classical literature, classical knowledge.
Yes.
5th from Karakamsha.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, and I have that listed, actually.
Yeah.
On a further slide. So that's actually... I'm
telling you, just 5th house of Karakamsha gives me now so much about everybody.
Oh, yeah. 5th house, and then 5th house from that. Look at that. It's exalted for him.
Yeah.
So, but look at this Mercury. This is a good way to use that Trimurti trick I showed. So look at that Mercury and that Saturn. They're in the exact same pada.
Yeah.
The Moksha pada of a Venus Nakshatra. So that means both are going to influence Scorpio and the Navamsa. So they both, and that Ketu, because it's in a Saturn Nakshatra. Right? And it's in the 4th pada.
And if you superimpose Mercury, Saturn upon the 5th house in the birth chart, with Ketu being there already, will give you a whole lot about, the children aspect and having that karma of, the spiritual path, writing, and at the same time, that blown up thing that you're talking about is definitely there with the 8th and 3rd Lord.
Powerful. He was someone with like this dramatic path change, because I was reading, he was really political and he was really involved in this stuff, and all of a sudden he just he has a realization. It was Vivekananda who came to him in prison. It was Vivekananda who he had visions of. He actually spoke to Vivekananda in spirit, and it was Vivekananda who he said awoken him to. It's very interesting. He's a very interesting character. But yeah, this exactly, I have some of the things that you're saying right here. So look at you. You really know your stuff here. So yeah, the Karakamsha is Scorpio. Ketu and Rahu are exalted by most systems of thought.
Yeah.
You see that? And they're in Vargotama Pada. So you see how powerful they are? Right. And that actually is said that can give liberation when Ketu or Upaketu is associated with
Oh,
Karakamsa.
Vedanta philosophy, fifth house, Jupiter. Okay. Yeah.
That what you just said, I had written it down because that's so powerful. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. You'll see it so many times. Yeah, this is beautiful. I mean, he literally fulfilled everything dealing with the Bharati Yoga, Saraswati Yoga, and with the things dealing with the Karakamsha. And he, if you look at that Rahu and Ketu, the path was so fixed. You know, that awakening was so strong, but Upaketu can do the same thing if it's in the Karakamsha. So people should look at the Upagrahas, because when when Upaketu comes in, especially if he's in like Scorpio, there's certain signs where he'll do a Kumbha. If he's in Aquarius, and that's the Karakamsha, then it can produce, they say, liberation or moksha in this birth. So it's a very interesting thing to look at how strong that Rahu Ketu is, where everything falls from his Karakamsha. Yeah, so you can see so many things, right?
Yeah.
Oops, I think that's the end.
Wow.
That's the end, short and sweet.
Now let me ask you, can you read Navamsa by itself without ever looking at the birth chart?
Yes, absolutely. And I was wondering if you even wanted to possibly do like a part 2 on that, or play with that, because there's ways that if you just have the Navamsa of a person, you can determine the nakshatras, right? You can determine the nakshatras. As a matter of fact, if you work backwards from the Navamsa, you're going to get a real read, a pulse on the person.
Like reverse engineering the thing.
Yes, sometimes I feel the Navamsa is like that chart. It just, to me, seems like the real chart. I don't know. It seems like such a powerful chart. And there's a reason why it's always mentioned in all this literature. And why these certain yogas, like there's certain Raj yogas. And I know like there's certain Raj yogas that even involve the Vimsamsha. Like, someone is born that will be very powerful if the Raj Yoga involves the Navamsa, Lord of the 10th, and the 20th Vimsamsha or whatever. You know, like there's all these intricate yogas that our ancient rishis, you know, they noticed. And I think that they're worth studying, because it's not because we need to look at these yogas and think they're the be-all, end-all. They're not. Only some people are going to manifest them 100%, like Mahapurush Yoga. Too many people have those.
Yeah.
But they become really strong in certain instances, and you need to see the Navamsa for that. The Navamsa will show you their placement from the Karakamsha, the placement in certain nakshatras make that Mahapurush Yoga very strong when it goes along with the agenda of that graha. So there's certain things with these yogas we need to consider, because so many people have Raj yogas.
Yeah.
So many people have negative yogas, and they have a good life. So we don't understand the workings of these, and I think part of it is because we don't invest the time to figure out why these yogas were formed in the first place. And if you figure out that, then you'll see, my yoga, it's not that strong. That's why. It's not, it's a negative yoga, but maybe it doesn't have as much strength. It's not getting empowered so much. So it's not producing that result. Or maybe it's a great yoga, but it's not producing the effect because there's disharmonious nakshatras that don't support they don't grow the agenda of that yoga. The Navamsa
started in 2 different nakshatra, but in the same sign.
Yeah.
Will not manifest that same pathway.
Exactly. And if you look at something like Bharati Yoga, you know, and like for him, that Mars being responsible, you can really see how, you know, being in Pushya Nakshatra, right? Brihaspati, the expounder of the sacred doctrine, the keeper of the sacred fire, the guru of the gods. That's how his Bharati Yoga manifested, was through speaking Sanskrit and translations and all these things, and that Jupiter influencing it. You know, exalted Jupiter, that exalted ninth lord. Wow. So you can really get a quality of the person, and you could tell this is not such a gentle person.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's He was out there, man. He was.
Right.
And
Right.
also, like, from Karakamsha Lagna itself, planet in certain houses mean certain things. And I wanted to, like, have you come on again, talk about planetary placements from Karakamsha, what they mean in the first house, second, third, fourth. So
I would love that. And I would love everyone just to read a few of the basic things like in Brihat or Shastra.
yeah,
Just read those things, but you know, at the same time, make a decision off of research
hmm
because society has changed.
yeah,
We've adapted. We first of all, our population's huge.
yeah,
You know, not everyone's going to be a farmer that has this specific alignment, you know.
exactly.
We
Very,
have free choice. We don't do what our father did anymore. Right?
absolutely, absolutely.
So,
Let's do the second part where we'll also talk about Karakamsha.
okay,
How about that?
beautiful. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Eve, for coming. And check out her YouTube channel on YouTube, Eve Mendoza. And we'll schedule something within like 3-4 weeks. I know we're going to do that big women thing. So dress up like a woman, right? And I'm going to come on.
Well, you can be, we'll be
I'll be
sisters.
with all the sisterhood there.
Right?
So yeah, we'll bring you on soon, Reeve. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.